Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Wirepoints.com, President Ted Dabrowski, in this edition of Rising. And Ted, we mentioned this when we talked to Representative Alan Skillicorn earlier in the show, but David Harris, who's really a disreputable enemy inside the perimeter of the Republican Party, he's retiring. He didn't want to face a primary challenge to account for his vote, yes, on the 32% income tax hike and all kinds of other big government votes that he's made. He's just was really hanging around to max out on his legislative pension, which hopefully he'll never see. That's one pension fund that I'm rooting for it to capsize. That's the one. The other ones I'd like really to save. Close. Yeah, right. And of course, it's the worst funded because these guys can't even act to save themselves, of course. So David Harris, this week, before they all adjourned for their summer vacation, had this to say about Illinois. This is about as much of a defense, I guess, as you can muster for Illinois and what the politicians of both parties have done to this state. Listen to Harris.
I'd just like to put into the record today that Illinois is not yet quite the wasteland that all of you, or not all of you, that we may have heard about, said from folks indicating that everybody's leaving the state. As a matter of fact, in March of this year, Site Selection magazine named Illinois as a destination for businesses looking to relocate. The Governor's Cup ranking lists the state as one of the top three, as one of the top ones for new and expanding businesses. This is the second consecutive year that Illinois has received the honor, and the recognition is awarded to states with the most qualifying new and expanding facilities per capita. So perhaps we may very well be on the right track in attracting the type of businesses that we want.
It's a great T.S. Eliot impersonation here. We're not the wasteland that people think we are yet, but maybe replace that on the license plates. Here's the other thing, just so you know, because they're citing rankings. I think we're also number one in terms of destination states, according to the Socialist Workers paper. So, I mean, David Harris, ladies and gentlemen, David Harris.
Out of touch. I think it's amazing that he can stand there and say that. When you look at, I take the one measure that kind of encapsulates what a mess we are. That we're one notch away from a junk bond rating from Moody's, and you can't be a destination place if that's where you are. You can't be the destination place for a company if you have the highest property taxes in the nation. You can't be
the highest outmigration, as you mentioned, losing a third of our manufacturing jobs net since the beginning of the century. I mean,
shrinking population 4 years in a row.
I mean, come on. It's not like we're celebrating this, but this is like the mindless happy talk. This is a political hack singing for his supper. He's on his way out. He wants to assuage his guilty conscience for being part of the problem in Illinois. Things aren't that bad. He sounds like frackin' Madigan spokesman Steve Brown, which is, things aren't as bad as you think. We're working on it. Plenty of blame to go around. Rinse and repeat for every affliction that ails the state. It's just, I mean, it's just so insulting. So you can understand why people throw up their hands and say, well, okay, you know, these guys and gals and this whole political culture and this whole kleptocracy, I can't get out of here fast enough. And he, of course, isn't acknowledging what the conversations are for the people, for so many of the people, professionals, entrepreneurs that are still here, but are plotting their exit strategy.
Yeah, and that kind of talk confuses a lot of people. You know, there's a lot of people who don't keep track with what's going on in Illinois, and I think that's a big part of the problem. So when you hear somebody like him say that, and I wrote a piece about the Civic Fed the other day. When the Civic Fed argues that all we need are tax hikes and everything will be fine. Yeah. Right? I mean, when you
haven't tried that.
If you have civic institutions that, you need to turn somewhere, when you can't trust your politicians, you need to turn somewhere. And if it's your politician who's saying those kind of things or a civic institution, it makes it really hard for a uninformed person to really know what the hell's going on.
Don't believe your lying property tax bill. Don't believe your lying overall state and local tax burden, the highest in the nation. Don't believe what your lying eyes around you, seeing your friends and family members move, your kids go to college out of state. Don't believe any of that. Believe David Harris's happy horse pucky.
Well, it's why people can't connect the dots, because they hear so many conflicting things from people that, in theory, they should trust.
Well, yeah, once you may do a little state tour with David Harris, get out Rockford Way, Decatur, Peoria. Look at home prices in Peoria now that Caterpillar's executing their methodical exit from that city, that corporate headquarters in this state.
Go to Danville.
Yeah.
Yeah, just right across
Go to
the
East
border.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
Go to Southern Illinois generally. I mean, it's just remarkable. But I guess this is all cliches are true, and say this so often. And I go back just as what's the order of magnitude of the financial meteor that needs to hit this state to wake people up? Because the fact that a David Harris can survive in public office for 20 years. I mean, he's a disgrace, but it's a disgrace to his electorate, too. It's a disgrace to the Republican Party. It's a disgrace to the state. And there are a lot more David Harrises in Springfield than there are Alan Skillicorns or Jeannie Iveses.
Well, I think in the end, I keep saying this, Illinoisans aren't stupid. They'll be hoodwinked for a while, and there's a bunch of hoodwinkers. They'll be hoodwinked for a while, but at some point they'll all wake up. It'll happen.
I don't know.
We just don't know what that meteor is, but it'll happen.
I'm in the Charles Thomas camp. Charles Thomas, our friend from former ABC political reporter, who talks about he's talking about the black community, but it's not limited to the black community. That we are hooked on demo crack. We're strung out on demo crack in this city and this state, and until we get treatment, that addiction is going to be our undoing.